Hello everybody, and welcome to the Academic Skills Module 4, titled Fading Prompts and Error Correction. The content of these slides was compiled by myself, Dr. Leslie Neely, and Dr. Catherine Hoffman. This work was supported in whole or part by a grant from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. The opinions and conclusions expressed in this document are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the opinions or policies of the THECB. In Module 4, we will be exploring the following questions. First, what is prompt fading? Next, how do we fade prompts so that the learner responds independently? And finally, what do we do if the learner responds incorrectly? Following this learning module, you will complete an activity with your child where you will practice prompt fading and error correction procedures. In the previous module, we learned that when a child is acquiring a new skill, we can use prompts to get them to respond correctly. Following prompted responses, we can then deliver preferred items. This will increase the likelihood that the learner will respond with the correct response in the future. Our ultimate goal, however, is for the learner to respond without prompts. In order to achieve this, we use a procedure called prompt fading. Prompt fading is the process of reducing prompts so that the learner responds independently. So let's go back to the example in the previous module to illustrate prompt fading. In this example, the dad says, "Touch your nose." Then, immediately following his instruction, and before his daughter responds, he physically guides her hand to touch her nose. The father then delivers a preferred consequence, "Good job," and popcorn. Physical guidance is considered a full prompt and is a way to help the learner master a skill errorlessly. Obviously, we want the learner to eventually do the skill independently, and so after a few trials of fully guiding the learner's hand, the dad then slowly removes his hand or fades the prompt to a lesser prompt. Perhaps he models the response by touching his own nose instead of guiding his child's hand, and then the learner does the response. Once the learner can consistently perform touching her nose with only dad modeling the prompt, then dad will fade his prompt even more. He could then perhaps show a pointed finger and not actually touch his nose. Once the learner can respond consistently with this prompt, he could then fade to simply delivering the instruction. If the learner can respond correctly, he continues to reinforce the correct independent response, and the goal of independently learning a skill has been accomplished. So there are two types of prompt fading. One is called most to least prompting. In most to least prompt fading, you start by offering the most help needed to get the correct answer. Once the child can respond correctly with this prompt, you then fade to a lesser prompt by reducing the amount of help or prompt you provide. The previous touch your nose example showed a most to least prompt fading procedure. As the father started with physical guidance, and with each subsequent trial, he delivered less help until his daughter was able to respond to his instruction with no prompts. So let's look at another example. The following is a video illustrating most to least prompting when teaching a learner to clap their hands. You'll notice the first time the therapist delivers the instruction, "clap hands," she immediately delivers a full physical prompt. On the second trial, the therapist again says "clap hands" and delivers a partial physical prompt, only helping the learner by guiding the sides of their arms. On the third trial, the therapist will use a modeling prompt. So after saying clap hands, the therapist models the behavior. On the fourth trial, the therapist delivers a partial modeling prompt where she begins the response but does not model the full clapping behavior. And on the final trial, no prompt is given, and the learner completes the response independently.
Clap hands.
It's a full physical prompt,
Okay. Clap hands.
partial physical prompt,
Clap hands.
modeling prompt,
Clap hands.
partial model,
Clap hands. Great job, Katie.
independent. So that was a simple illustration of most to least prompting. Another prompt fading technique is called least to most prompting. In least to most prompting, the learner begins with the least amount of help or prompting needed, and we gradually increase the amount of help or prompting necessary to get a correct answer. Fading is naturally programmed through time delay as the learner responds sooner and sooner and gets reinforced for the correct response. With least to most prompting, the learner receives more help if they respond incorrectly to your response or your instruction, or if they do not provide a response at all. So we will talk more about how to correct these errors following the least to most prompting video. So this is an example of least to most prompting. Notice that following no response from the learner, the therapist first delivers a pointing prompt, then a partial physical prompt, and finally a full physical prompt to get the learner to respond correctly before she delivers the reinforcement.
Look. Point to the pig. Point to the pig. Point to the pig. Point to the pig. Nice working. That is the pig.
So here's another example of least to most prompting. Notice the learner will not respond, and the therapist will start with a pointing prompt, then a partial physical, and finally a full physical to get the learner to respond before delivering reinforcement.
Katie, point to diamond. Katie, point to diamond. Point to diamond. Point to diamond. Okay.
So sometimes, with least to most prompting, a child may engage in challenging behavior. Unlike most to least prompting, which delivers the highest level of support needed, least to most begins with a low level of support. When a learner does not respond, they may be more likely to respond with challenging behavior. So this video shows us what least to most prompting looks like when a learner is engaging in challenging behavior.
Katie, point to diamond. Point to diamond. Point to diamond. Okay.
So what you may have noticed is that the therapist simply ignored the challenging behavior and continued presenting the instruction, delivering higher levels of prompting with each trial. So if you have concerns about challenging behavior during your child's learning, please consult with your BCBA-D. So now we're going to move on to what do you do if your learner makes an error. you will respond with an error correction procedure. Error correction is a method to get the learner to respond correctly after they have made a mistake. This procedure is not meant to upset your learner, but rather assist them in getting to the correct answer quickly. So immediately following an incorrect response, you will complete the following steps. You can say oops or some other kind of neutral statement such as let's try again. You want to quickly remove any materials you are using and remove them from the workspace. Then you will retry your instruction, but this time increase the amount of help or prompt you give to your learner by providing a prompt that's higher. And of course, if the learner responds correctly with the prompt, follow the correct response with a mid-level preference or reinforcer. So let's go over an example. So say you give the instruction, give me star, and your learner gives you a square. You'll say, oops, remove all the shapes from the table, then replace and rearrange the items. You'll repeat your instruction, give me star, while pointing to the correct answer, which is of course a gestural prompt. If they give you a star, which is the correct answer, you can end with praise, good, I like how you tried, remembering to use differential reinforcement. If they are incorrect, you might repeat the same steps but move to a higher level prompt and give your learner more help with the new trial. So next time, you might actually partially physically prompt your learner to point and give you the star. So for your activity this week, you will video yourself working with your child on the target skill. So remember to incorporate everything that we've learned to date. For more information, please go to the Eli Atomy course page. Thank you for your attention. The following are references for the materials used during the making of this presentation.